Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit. We're continuing our series of daily morning meditations where we generally look at one or another lessons that are assigned for morning or evening prayer, what is known as the Daily Office Lectionary. And I thought today for Friday, let's take a look at the lesson that's assigned from the book of the prophet Samuel. It's assigned for morning prayer. And we remember we've gone through now the book of Samuel, the first 9 chapters. We've gone through the birth of Saul and the fact that God has made Saul a great prophet. And at this point, the people of Jews have come to Saul and said, we want a king. All the other nations have a king. We want a king. And of course, Saul says, you don't want a king. God says you don't want a king. They'll take your men. They'll take your tax money, all of those sort of things. But they insist that they feel it'd be better if they have a king. And so God acquiesces. And basically Samuel says, you'll be sorry, but God has said, okay, you can have a king. And now here we are, chapter number 10, and we hear about God's choice of the first king of Israel. Then Samuel took a vial of oil, and poured it upon his head, and kissed him, and said, Is it not because the Lord hath anointed thee to be captain over his inheritance? When thou departed from me today, then thou shalt find 2 men by Rachel's sepulchre, in the border of Benjamin at Zelzah. And they will say unto thee, The asses which thou wentest to seek are found. And lo, thy father hath left the care of the asses, and sorroweth for you, saying, What shall I do for my son? Then shalt thou go on forward from thence, and thou shalt come to the plain of Tabor, and there shall meet thee 3 men going up to God to Bethel, one carrying 3 kids, and another carrying 3 loaves of bread, and another carrying a bottle of wine. And they will salute thee, and give thee 2 loaves of bread, which thou shalt receive of their hands. And after thou shalt come to the hill of God, there is a garrison of the Philistines, and it shall come to pass, when thou art come thither to the city, that thou shalt meet a company of prophets coming down from the high place, with a psaltery and a tabret and a pipe and a harp before them, and they shall prophesy. And the Spirit of the Lord will come upon thee, and thou shalt prophesy with them, and shalt be turned into another man. And let it be, when these signs are come unto thee, that thou do as occasion serve thee, for God is with thee. And thou shalt go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come down unto thee, to offer burnt offerings, and to sacrifice sacrifices of peace offerings. 7 days thou shalt tarry, till I come to thee, and show thee what thou shalt do. And it was so, that when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart, and all those signs came to pass that day. And when they came hither to the hill, behold, a company of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God came upon him, and he prophesied among them. And it came to pass, when all that knew him before time saw him, behold, he prophesied among the prophets. And the people said one to another, What is this that is come unto the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? Okay, so the first choice for the king of Israel is, of course, Saul. And we hear that God has begun to change his heart. We know that one of the reasons that Saul seemed to be such an attractive character was he was head and shoulders taller than most people. And if we know anything about history, with the exception of people like Bonaparte, right, Napoleon Bonaparte, for the most part, great leaders have tended to be taller men who basically kind of have a command, what we call a command presence. George Washington was much taller than all of his troops at the time of the Revolutionary War, and so that oftentimes leads to that. So most people assume Saul's going to be a great man because he's good looking and he's tall, but we will see that things are going to change and change quickly. Even though God is changing Saul's heart, Saul still has the free will and will do some things that are not according to God's will. That'll ultimately end his reign and his kingdom. Okay, so today is Friday. We don't have public worship at St. John's on Friday, but of course, I hope that you're saying your morning prayers, your evening prayers, and praying during the course of the day. Keep us in your prayers as we are praying for you. And may God grant you a Friday that is full of blessings.